Welcome to another episode of our SaaS Stories podcast. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your SaaS business. In this episode, I talk to Vaughn, an experienced IT channel leader who is driving the force behind MindMetrics. Vaughn is an accomplished IT channel leader with a wealth of expertise in sales, consulting, marketing, research, and insights. With a strong background in corporate leadership and go-to-market GTM strategy building, Vaughn has led sales organizations to success, understanding and nuances of channel partners' needs and the intricate partner ecosystem that drives revenue growth for vendors. Equipped with SaaS experience, Vaughn is well versed in selling platforms and products that supports partners' programs. High skill set extends to segmentation development, channel partner recruiting, and effective partner GTM strategies, along with true partner marketing tactics. A true motivational executive, Vaughn excels in driving enterprise technology vendor growth through both direct and indirect sales processes. He thrives on building hands-on relationships, assessing program effectiveness, and steering overall company success. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, Vaughn, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ash. It's great to be here. Glad to be with you.
Great. Do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires or motivates you that you can share with us?
Yeah, actually, I have a favorite author. It's Mark Twain, and he is as sarcastic as anything. But he did say at one point that 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things that you don't do than by the ones that you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, and discover. So anyway, that sort of motivates me, as a business person, and I don't know, I like his writing, and I like his quotes. So
Perfect. That sounds good. I totally agree with that. Okay, so tell us about MindMetrics then. What does the product do? Who is it for? And what's the main problem you're helping to solve?
yeah, Line Matrix is an interesting organization. We got started in the '90s, and it was started specifically to do some things around marketplace. Didn't necessarily exist in the phraseology at the time, but it was building something akin to a marketplace. And as that process evolved, and as the technology industry kind of moved forward, it started to embrace this idea of partnerships, which is companies working with other companies to sell on their behalf. And the thing that happened at the time was that MindMatrix sort of recognized that what they were doing allowed them to kind of step into this idea of how do I support that relationship and all of the things that need to be done to allow those relationships to be successful. And so we built out this partner relationship management software, which helps organizations to manage and execute the operational side of those partnerships, and then also a partner marketing automation and partner sales automation platform that in essence basically is allowing the channel sales and the channel marketing people to effectively move things through channel partners to sell revenue on a vendor's behalf.
Interesting. So, I'm not sure if you've been in touch with my podcast before, but I have recently interviewed someone from K1 Consulting. His name is Andrew. And he also mentioned about channel consulting and being into startup space for a while and interviewing lots of founders. This is very intriguing for founders like us, because normally we don't come across partnership strategies when we launch startups, or until we grow it to a space where we get now A rounds or B rounds for the investments. So would you like to share some more details on how actually this particular strategy helps small or potentially big startups, which would like to, either incorporate this strategy into their business model or revenue model, or potentially, think about it for their future.
Yeah, actually, there's a really great view on this, and it's that when you build a sales organization, you have direct sellers, okay, and you hire a direct seller. They sell on your behalf. They bring in deals. They're able to be successful or not successful. Well, when you start to sell using the channel or partnerships, basically, it's it's putting an entire organization's sales department behind you. You can never hire enough direct sellers to offset just having an entire organization's sellers look out for opportunities for your products and services. And so the thing that happens is that as organizations move from early stages into more of the second stage of their existence, they start to realize that they want to scale up their revenue faster than they're doing. And almost every case, what they land on is that they need to start to recruit channel partners that can move and sell and align to them and sell on their behalf. And so what ends up happening is they go in and they say, okay, we're going to start up this partner program, and they might have a really great technology, but basically they these folks to actually start to pay attention to them, to get some mind share, to start to pay attention to them as they come across their deals and things like that. And so they typically get one or two of them start to do that really effectively. And as the programs evolve and as they get better at what they're doing, they move from a couple of partners that are able to do that before them to a situation where it jumps. And suddenly they go from having one or two that they can manage through spreadsheets or by personal relationships to 15 and to 20 partners and to 25 partners. And it almost instantly becomes a situation where now they've got a choice. Either they're going to have to hire more people just to manage those folks, or they're going to have to actually bring in automation that allows them to manage the overall relationship. And the platform that we're bringing to the table actually solves that problem on scale.
Right. Got it. And I want to pick up on the story behind how actually MindMetrics begin its journey. But before picking up onto that, I would like to understand more. Let's say, for example, if MindMetrics has ideal customer profile, how would you define that profile?
Yeah, the ideal customer profile for MindMatrix is really interesting because it spans from the organizations that might have 10 to 15 or 10 to 20 partners, which typically from a revenue standpoint, they're sitting on 50 million in revenue, 100 million in revenue. That's about the point that seems to trigger these ecosystems. But we support organizations that are in the billions. Okay. So this goes from how do you scale from the smallest of partnership ecosystems all the way up to the organizations that have tens and hundreds of thousands of partners. And the software that we provide actually allows that entire motion to be coordinated.
Gotcha. So is it something similar to? So it's just come to my mind that I used to integrate a software called Salesforce back in the days. Do you guys also integrate with them, or is it one of your competitors?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, we don't compete with Salesforce. In fact, typically speaking, when organizations come into this type of process, they before they reach the point that they start to realize they need a software like this, they've done a few things. They've integrated a CRM. They typically have some sort of they might have a direct marketing motion in play, and then they've got typically one or two other pieces of software that manage like their quoting, or that manage in some cases some of the sales functions, like that. The way that we approach the world is actually that if you've got something that works well, leave it in place. Okay. So for instance, your CRM, we don't look to replace your CRM. What we look to do is actually integrate it into our system. Mm-hmm. So we never compete with Salesforce, but what we do have is a native integration into Salesforce, so that we've got bidirectional syncing that goes on back and forth between the partner platform that allows people to interact with partners, sell through partners, generate deals through partners, and that whole motion syncs back to Salesforce, and then Salesforce motions sync back into the partner relationship management platform, so that the two things work together. And what you're doing is you're creating what in effect is a single pane of glass for anything that's related to sales, if that's related to partner-led sales, marketing, partner-led marketing, so that you've got the ability to kind of do it all from one portal, all from one place, which increases the engagement from both the sellers, your direct sellers, and the partnerships that are selling on your behalf.
Got it. So basically, Salesforce is not your competition. It's a giant organization who with you actually integrate to make businesses seamlessly integrated with data as well as their partnership programs.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And then, Salesforce, for instance, doesn't have a really robust marketing engine. And one of the layers of our platform actually provides an ability to market both to partners, through partners, with partners, and for partners, so that the automation can engage these channel partners in whatever level that they're comfortable with, and with whatever interaction or engagement that they want to have with the vendor that's supplying the software itself. And then in addition to that, actually, we have a marketing automation layer that sits on the Salesforce marketplace, that allows people to plug our software into their Salesforce instances.
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about the history of MindMetrics and how. Tell us about how the story actually began. What's the starting point? What was the idea? How it got triggered, and then you create your organization came up with this idea, and then they created this software for enterprises.
Yeah, I mentioned that it happened around in the 90s. They started out with this thing that they call Solve IT, and it's or Solve It, and it was really just a solution marketplace. And from there, they started to recognize that this channel ecosystem, or this channel organization, was emerging, and that they needed to support it in some way. When you look at the providers of these types of software, they almost always have a genesis in one of two areas. They either have a genesis in the partner relationship side of things, which is really managing the operational components, and it's sort of like the learning management systems, and they manage the certifications, and they manage the deal registrations and things like that. Alternatively, the other providers that have found their way into this space have a genesis in the channel marketing. Originally, it was called TCMA, through channel marketing automation. But it's sort of evolving into this partner marketing automation because it's not always just through channels. But the thing that happened with MindMatrix is that we had gotten our hands on the ability to in effect market to partners, market to organizations, and unwind all of the or provide the attribution basically for all of the marketing that goes on in that space. And for us, given that we were as good as we were at the through channel marketing automation, it only made sense to add in the other PRM elements. So, several years ago, it was in kind of the early 2000s, we added that in, and then we've been evolving that ever since. And in essence, what we've done is we sort of solved three layers. It's that partner operations problem, the partner marketing problem, and the partner sales problem. And it's been interesting. I mean, there was sort of a tipping point about 10 years ago where things kind of stabled up for a while, and then in the last year or two, there's been a real voice towards this idea of channel ecosystems, and it's basically channel partners selling with other channel partners, vendors selling with other vendors, having alliance partners in that whole mix. And more recently, all of the development and the feature additions that we adding into the system have to do with how to support those ecosystems. It sort of disrupted this type of motion, basically.
Awesome. And this tells me that MindMatrix is already somewhere around 30-ish years old, or 25.
Yeah. We sort of posted up as 25 years old, and it's 25 plus.
Yeah. Awesome. So can you give us a sense of the size of the business? Where are you in terms of number of customers or size of team?
Yeah, actually, I mean, we've got quite a lot. The organization overall sits at about 300 people. About half of them are developers that are writing new features and supporting the software itself. The other half are a mix of the client success folks. We've got a big client success team that sits in the United States that manages the client success operation. There's a group of us that are either on the partnerships or business development or sales organizational side of things. We're headquartered out of Pittsburgh, but are pretty evenly distributed between U.S. and outside of the U.S. actually.
Perfect. And just out of curiosity, because it is growing up into the industry that a lot of companies are now moving towards remote working, practices. Are you guys also following that, or is it something in process, or what are your thoughts on it?
It's a real blend. I'm actually out of the Phoenix area. Our headquarters are actually in Pittsburgh. We've got a lot of development resource and folks that are working outside of the U.S. A lot of them are in really defined offices because the motion of them working together works out. The innovation happens with those developers more effectively when they're together, at least for that group. But the headquarter location tries to make a point of getting together a couple of times a week, actually, in the office in Pittsburgh. And so they try to bring as many of the folks in to that office as they can. And it really has turned into a blend for us all. I make it into the office as often as I can. It has a tendency to be about quarterly. So,
yeah, I can totally relate to that, because this has become a new way of working for all of us, because it's just more productive, more as you mentioned, that innovation happens when you work in a team live together. But it also gives you more time when you're working from remotely, maybe once or twice a week, or maybe other way around. It just helps. Great stuff. So I want to dig into your competitors who are there in the market. But before we dig into that, I would like to know more about you personally. How did you get into mind metrics? And before that, actually, where were you born? Where were you brought up? How did you got into channel consulting space? Because that's something very, very niche from a founder's perspective. And what actually motivated you from either your childhood or your young, you're still young, but like previous life, where you have learned something and you say, oh, that's something I'm interested in, I want to do it. Like, that's what I love.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been in leadership positions for most of my career. If you go back far enough, I was raised in Idaho, in the U.S. And aside from raising potatoes, growing potatoes, which is a real thing, by the way, there's not a lot going on. There was a nuclear waste storage facility near my hometown. And when I graduated with my master's degree, I've got a bachelor's in psychology and a master's in sociology. And I graduated with my master's degree, and I looked around and I said, you don't want to put me in charge of storing nuclear waste. That's not something I'm particularly good at. That's accident waiting to happen. And so we moved from Idaho to the thriving metropolis of Salt Lake City, and we lived in just outside of Salt Lake for quite a few years. And while I was there, because of my background in research and from my psychology and sociology degree, I stepped into research positions. And so I was managing data, I was doing statistical analysis, I was creating research. At one point I remember it pretty clearly. I was in my first role, and we were in Austin at a client's organization, and I was with the president and CEO of the company at the time, and he had said a couple of things in this meeting that sort of pissed the client off, and I stepped in, saved this guy from making a fool out of himself, helped the client, figure out the answer to the questions that they were asking, and it turned into a really great meeting. When we dropped the CEO off at the office, and I was probably 3 or 4 years into my career there with this organization, we dropped him off at the airport. He turned to me and he said, "Thank you. I'm giving you a promotion. You are now a VP with my company." And I held on to that from that point onward, and ended up, heading up I was the president of a research company after that. And when it sort of ran its course, I had done some stuff with PE companies as a VP in one of their organizations and some things. And when that all ran its course, I looked around and I said, I think I'm ready to get back into research. And so I found this company called B Channels, who incidentally has been since purchased by the Channel Company. I went in to head all of their U.S. research and consulting business. And the first thing that happened, it was probably 10 or 12 years ago, the first thing that happened is they said, "We've got this thing, it's called the Channel, and you need to start doing research on the Channel." And I went, "What is that?" To a tech company. And over the course of my time there, I managed to learn a lot about the Channel. I did a lot of channel consulting with big enterprise billion plus organizations on what their partner programs to look like and things. And during that time, I moved from being the head of their U.S. to their global head of research based consulting, and then into the chief revenue officer role. And while I was the chief revenue officer, we sold the business to the channel company, got in there, looked around, and they already had a chief revenue officer. So,
Okay.
you know, a situation like that might go down. And so we integrated our global sales team and took the package and found my way into Mind Matrix. And it was because I knew the CEO, and I really, really believed in what they were doing. They had started to get a lot of momentum, and they were doing some great innovation. And I've been here since, and it's been a blast, actually.
Amazing. I mean, I love the story you mentioned about, when your CEO told you on the airport, you're promoted. That's amazing.
So young. It was, I was in my early 20s when it happened, actually. Managed to hang on to it ever since. So weird.
That it's give me some thought. It gives me some fuel to think like, do you still think that being a leader, because a lot of founders I speak with, not all of them have this leadership quality into them, right? I'm not saying that you born with a leadership quality, but at some point in life you have to learn things which gets you into the position where you feel, and you build a team, and then you make sure that you lead them by helping them and nurturing them. So do you think that a part of your childhood or a part of your brought up has some kind of lessons or teachings from a natural way, either from your parents' side or from your friends or surrounding, which actually gave you an advantage to learn the leadership?
Yeah, absolutely it has. And I can tell you exactly what it is. Actually, my dad was a blue collar guy. I was the first of my family on his side to get a college education. He had come to the United States from a different country to live the American dream. And the thing that he had going for him, he had been a blue collar guy in the country that he came from. And the thing I learned two big things from him. The first one is that you got to work your butt off to succeed. Okay? And there's, people can't ignore you if you're a hard worker. The second one is, and it's actually one of the biggest things that have really supported my career. It's that you need to be the most obvious solution, and that doesn't happen by accident. Okay? If someone has a problem to solve and you're the most obvious solution, regardless of whether you can solve their problem or not, they'll go to you and say, "Hey, what do you know about this thing?" And you tell them, "Well, I know this about it. And by the way, this product that I'm working on solves that problem." Or they'll also come to you if you don't know and say, "What do you know about this?" And you can say, I don't know, but I know this guy over here, and he'll be able to answer your problem because it relates to this thing that you're asking about. And in both cases, working hard and being the most obvious solution to the problem, it's just going above and beyond to make sure that you're successful and that your leadership is successful in what they're doing. And when you manage to work hard and be successful and help them be successful, which is the more important of it, then they'll ask you, for your feedback, and you find yourself in those areas where you can be a confidant and a leader in a business.
Understood. Yeah, it happens with a lot of us that we have some kind of past which actually influence us to do something in our current or in future. So let's move one step forward and let's talk more about your current daily routine stuff. So can you talk about your either your morning or your daily routine, which actually gives you more energy or more substance to make or streamline your decision making process?
Yeah, I am not a morning person, and you hear all about how leaders are morning people, but I just am not. I love to sleep. I mean, it is what it is. I love to sleep. So, but I do take, I'm in the Pacific time zone, and I've been working with people all over the world for most of my career, and so part of that is just being flexible enough to actually take calls in the morning, take calls in the evening, and try to at the same time maintain your work life balance in a way that allows you to stay energized about things that you're doing. Every organization that I've been involved with, I've really been concerned about being able to maintain a work-life balance, and that if I can do that, I can stay energized towards the goals that I'm trying to accomplish, and that I can actually make a difference for the business. And what that looks like in each organization is slightly different, but it's it's for me, um, it's not a rigid schedule. It becomes, sometimes I'm online at 6 a.m. for meetings, sometimes that at 8 or 9. Last night I worked till about 7 in the evening because I was in the flow of something that mattered to me and that I was passionate about, and I just continued on and looked up and realized what time it was. So it's get energized and find something that you can be passionate about. And when those two align, then you manage to make a real difference.
Indeed, indeed. Perfect. I mean, sometimes, you're working on something and you just get into it so much, you just forget about the time or forget about what's happening around you because you just keep focusing on things. And focus is, I guess, focus is one of the most precious things nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I mean, sometimes things that you have to do just really suck. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it is what it is. And sometimes you're just asked to do things that you just don't want to do. But if you can kind of find a good way through them and produce a good product as a result of it, then you can move on to the things that you are more passionate about and that you enjoy more than the thing that you were just doing. So
Yeah.
recognize that changes, and that if you get through it is really valuable for me.
Yeah, definitely. And I totally relate to you because in my previous places where I worked, I was in a few leadership roles, and the most boring job I had to do every 6 months is this things called mid-year reviews for your peers. Oh my God.
It's brutal. That for me, that is one of the worst. And it's so beneficial to the folks that you're doing those with, but boy, at the same time, they're brutal to put together, and they're so time consuming. But yeah, really necessary for their own leadership development. Boy, doing
So
this.
boring. Great stuff. Great stuff. Okay, great. So let's jump on to a little bit more, learning more about mind metrics. Then, so how do you differentiate a product when competing against the likes of mind metrics? Would you like to share a little bit more about it?
Yeah, for us, we we just went through our Forrester wave, and we were found to be the most strategic of the organizations that we were compared to. We ended up being really, we ended up with a really strong outcome. Really, really did well from a performance standpoint. What it comes down to for us is that we know that we've got a set of features that are all inclusive and robust. And so when we can speak to what those features are and how we have everything that our competitors have plus, then we're able to win. And we have great win rates in our sales process, but a lot of it has to do with, yeah, really there are three things in the business that we kind of hold dear. The first one is that our features need to be more than others in the same space. The second one is that those features need to be driven by our customer needs. So we're very client centric. And then there's a piece of this that our CEO injects into many conversations, and it has to do with that we need to be a company with a soul. And it's funny to be, in today's business environment, to be involved with an organization that the CEO is saying, we need to have a soul. We need to do the right thing by our customers and by our employees. Well, when you do that, people will stick with you longer. They'll stick with you even if you make a mistake here and there. And that goes not only for your customers, but it goes for your employees. And if you end up with longer tenures on your employees, they just know more. And so they're able to contribute at the same level as the rest of the business. And you just end up with this expertise that other folks may not have in the business. And it makes its way through to that competitive environment, where you're in a situation every time where you're competing with others.
Yeah. I mean,
we do like to win. It's just we do like to win.
It's the fact that your CEO seems like a man with an integrity and a person whom you can look at and say, oh, this man will do true to me, and that's a big thing nowadays, considering a lot of frauds coming along from $1 billion startups, here and there. They're faking their numbers. They're disclosing their growths, which is even not available on the papers, just to get onto the IPOs, etc. So comparing to that, what's happening in the market, this is something brilliant. I mean, getting this from you is one of the leadership from the company. It motivates people who are listening to this podcast. Oh, let's search for Mind Matrix. I would love to work with this company because the leadership is so honest and full of integrity towards their employees as well as customers. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I've often been accused of being too honest, actually, and maybe I see that as a good thing. I tell the people around me in my radius, don't ask me a question if you don't want a truthful answer. But it's for me that I want to and I have to be in an organization that is truthful and that is honest and that treats their people in good, ethical, and honest ways. So. And I found my way into that with Mind Matrix.
Awesome. Perfect. So tell us in your industry then, what do you believe is imperative for a business to succeed, and how does your company addresses this need?
That's a good question. I mean, in the space that we're in, this conversation around ecosystems and partners working with other partners and vendors working with other vendors, it, as annoying as it is, it's more than just a soundbite. It's the reality of something that's actually happening in the space that we're in. And for us, we have to have a good answer to that question. And we have to have good features and solutions in play that address the needs that are coming out of that requirement. So, that may be a slight turn from what you were looking for, but the the reality is for us successful and to really be relevant long term, we need to be more than what we were yesterday. And we're really focused on doing that. And then again, it comes back to being an organization that you can trust, right? So that we've built the solutions that need to be built. The organization that people engage with is one that they enjoy working with, and that they know that we've got their back and that we're looking to be to help them succeed. And it's all, I mean, that might feel a little bit wishy-washy in terms of, answers to those types of questions, but it's something that we really truly believe in, and that guides our process every day of our lives.
Mm, mm. That leads me to thinking that is there a feature in the software and so basically, how do you measure the impact of your solution on your customer's life? Is there a feature, or is there a analytical part?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, one of the big problems that a lot of organizations have, there's a lot of money that gets spent on through channel marketing. So the vendors actually spend a lot of money on behalf of the partners in their ecosystems. They'll give them money to to co-market, basically market on their behalf and their partners' behalf. The difficulty that they struggle with when it comes to that type of thing is that they struggle to understand the return on that investment. One of the features that we provide is actually, an ability to show the ROI on that investment, and it's very unique to us. It's something that's not necessarily inherent in other platforms, but it's something that exists. The other thing that you can start to get a feel for are, how effectively people are engaged with the platform. We provide a portal, and the more engaged that partners are with the portal and with these solutions, the more they'll drive revenue on your behalf, because really it's all about mind share. It's, will the partner sell you, or will they sell your closest competitor? And if they're engaged with you, they're going to sell you because you're providing them with the resources they need to be successful. And the platform that we have unwinds all of that, and it can actually talk about the success metrics that get wrapped around all of that, and our deals getting registered, and our people finding success, and are they logging in, and are they doing the things that will provide success in that engagement and in that relationship.
Got it. Okay, so as we are moving towards the end, I would like to understand a little bit more about your personal experiences. So tell us, throughout your journey and experience, there must have been valuable lessons learned. If you don't mind sharing or reflecting on your experience, and tell us about a mistake or a setback that you have encountered along the way, that you might consider a lessons learned or a regret, whichever way. And additionally, what advice would you give our listeners based on this experience?
Yeah, I mean, everyone makes mistakes, and I think it's important to recognize that. I've made mistakes as a researcher. And when you do that, you're giving people information that you think is accurate and that may be inaccurate. That, in that space, people make multi-million-dollar decisions based on the data that's collected. I think that for me, it's when you find that you've done that, it's being honest about your mistake that you've made, and then putting the effort in to actually resolve it, to fix it, to do the things that need to be done to make that right. and I can think of times, as a researcher, and you know, as a researcher particularly, where you, in retrospect, you think, okay, was that the most unbiased way to handle that thing? And you just you kind of want to always make sure that you're very straightforward about where things are. I can think of an experience that I had really early in my career where we were doing some political polling for, and one of the pollsters had us ask this question: do you think that Bill Clinton is a pot smoking junkie? And that was almost literally the question. And in retrospect, I've been a little bit more mature in my career. I think I probably would have passed on that. But at the time, you just do what you're told, and you just go about it. And it's just things like that where you think, I do think that my ethical guideline might be more important than some other things. And so, most people are really supportive. Leadership's really supportive of folks that know they've made a mistake and that are willing to fix it. And I guess my biggest recommendation there is to just be honest in what you're doing, and then go to your leadership with a solution rather than just drop it in their lap for them to solve.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I second that. So your advice is be a good doctor.
Yeah.
Have you watched that series yet? Better.
Is so anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So we should wrap up now. So we should go into the lightning round. I've got 6 quick fire questions for you. So, just try answering them as quickly as you can.
Okay.
You ready? Okay, great start. Number 1, what's one of the best pieces of business advice you have received?
I think it's that find something that you're passionate about and that the business needs.
I like that. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Boy, I think that the world is flat was really eye opening for me, and I realized that is a lot. That one's a while back, but it really opened my eyes to globalization, and then we're all sort of in this together.
Cool. I need to put that into my next list of reading of the books. Great. So what
it's big. It's a big.
Is it? Okay. Great. What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind for a successful founder?
One that is that you can feel is in it with you. You're mutually committed. It's not one-sided. That's the biggest one.
Perfect. Okay. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
I use LinkedIn a lot. I think it really helps, and I am excited lately I've been using Google's Bard probably more than I ever should, but it's solved a lot of problems for me right now.
Awesome. You like it better than OpenAI, I guess, ChatGPT?
Yeah. I mean, I'll have to tell you that at one point I actually asked Bard which was better, Bard or the GD that sat in that sits on the Microsoft side, and it actually gave me a really honest answer. And then I turned around and asked the same thing of ChatGPT, and it gave me an honest answer. So they both mentioned which one the other one had strengths at. The strengths that I needed were more aligned to the Bard one than the one that sits in the ChatGPT. And so it's not that I actually do use both of them, but I default to Bard because the questions that I answer are more closely aligned to the problems it solves.
Sounds good. Great. Okay. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would like to pursue if you had the time?
Oh, if I had the time, I would launch out a partner satisfaction state of technology partner ecosystem uh, business. Basically, it's understanding how partners view vendors and how vendors view partners, and rolling that up into a state of the industry that both parties could use to kind of make decisions on who they'll work with.
Got it. Interesting. And last but not least, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I one time actually rode down a water slide on a skateboard in an ice block. That was pretty fun. They don't know that about me, but it was highly sketchy.
Did you actually do a lot of sports or?
Yeah, I was actually at the first snowboarding competition in Idaho at Grand Targhee. I've been a snowboarder and a board sport advocate for most of my life, so that's another thing that most folks don't know about me. I've got a little bit of edge, more than people realize.
But never time I went through.
Still like punk music.
Oh, okay. So next time I have to catch up with you, I should find out where the punk music live show is going on a snowboard.
Yeah, there you go.
And you'll be there, right? Right. Vaughn, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story and unpacking, the decades of building this business with your CEO and some of the ups and downs along the way. If people would like to check out Mind Metrics, what's the website? Where should they go?
Yeah, it's just mindmatrix.net. Mindmatrix.net.
Awesome. And if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn every day of my life, and I actually connect to just about anyone that wants to connect to me, as long as it doesn't look like they're trying to sell to me immediately after I connect to them. So that's all good way.
Awesome. Well, and thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing with My Matrix. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on our SaaS Stories podcast.
The feeling's mutual. Thanks, Ash. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of our SaaS Stories podcast. I hope you found our conversation with Vaughn insightful and inspiring. If you're a founder or industry expert interested in sharing your story on our SaaS podcast, please don't hesitate to reach out. Simply email me at ash@artcircles.com and let's connect for a potential interview opportunity. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay updated on future interviews with proven founders and industry experts. We have a lineup of incredible guests and valuable insights coming your way. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building. Cheers.